Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome. My name is Katie Gideon. I will be your on camera facilitator for this week 2 October setup. We are so glad that you're here. I want to give a huge shout out to my co facilitator, who you will see in the chat, Bailey. We have had so much fun this weekend. Definitely catching up before we do dress rehearsals before. And honestly, Bailey and I talk the whole time. So we always show up just a little late to these. But we are so glad that you're here. I love seeing all of our returning socialers, those that are in the chat, and those that definitely show up on the attendee list that may just kind of sit on the sidelines a bit. But there is no right or wrong way to participate in these socials. But if you do want to chat to the larger Sonder family that's on the social tonight, just double check that your chat is set to everyone. It defaults to host and panelists, which just comes to myself and Bailey. And we are always happy to answer any questions there. Or if maybe you're not quite ready to kind of send out into the world kind of all that you're kind of feeling and thinking when it comes to these prompts, that is certainly a safe space to do it as well, just so you can get it kind of out of your head and into the world. But there is, again, no right or wrong way to do this. We know that there's going to be a lot going on. I am going to be talking, I'm going to be playing music. You're going to want to work on your journal. There's going to be slides. The chat is going to be going. So definitely participate in this in whatever way you need. Maybe you need just to be here for the kind of chat vibes to kind of add in the just if you had a rough day, if you have something that we're really excited to share, or if you just want to be here for all of those things, or if you're like, nope, I've set aside this hour to be just for me as I work on my social and my journal with my like headphones in. We are just glad that you've come exactly as you are, which is why that lovely love letter is there. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But I'm starting to see we had some new folks in the chat. This was their first social, so we want to welcome you. So if you want to throw in the chat, this is your first social, or maybe it's your first social in a while. We are just glad that you're here. You are in great hands with the Sonder fam that is here on Sundays. Each unique social has its own unique vibe. So we always enjoy that you have decided to spend this next hour with us. And as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions, though we do like to talk about our products, but we also love when you share your products as well. And that's everything from stickers to books to movies to TVs to whatever apps you're working on. We just ask that you kind of keep it to a minimum so it doesn't detract from the reason we're here, which is to set up our journals for this week. And as always, Bailey and I have some information, but we will most likely need to redirect your questions about your specific account information to hello@silkandsonder.com for all customer care inquiries. But if you want us to like flag it for our headquarters teams, just message the host and panelists, and Bailey and I can send that over to the team there because their customer service is great, but sometimes we can add a little bit of a highlight just to make sure that your needs are being taken care of. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. You're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if you had a week, if you had a weekend, if your football team's lost, we are glad that you're here. We're glad you've come exactly as you are, because this is our opportunity to reflect on the previous week, as well as the under kind of the banner of this month's theme, but also kind of get excited, add a little bit of that intentional optimism to our week ahead. I'm seeing all the football scores there anyway. I couldn't help but throw it out there because it was Navy Air Force weekend and Navy did win. So I always get a little bit excited for those specific weekends. But we are glad that you're here. And as always, please share in the chat kind of your thoughts and feelings. This is a safe space as well. But we're going to move into talking about the theme of resilience. And I feel like resilience, I'm on a little bit of a roller coaster with it because if you came to the social yesterday that I hosted, I feel like you got sad girl Katie when it came to resilience. And that's okay because I feel like this is just one of those themes that really makes me kind of melancholy. Even though there's so many opportunities to celebrate all of the cool and amazing things that we've done because we haven't been beaten down by it, but it's the kind of art an act of kind of coming back and stepping up and doing all those things again. But I just kind of reached the moment of sometimes I'm just a little tired of being resilient. But I found these really great quotes to kind of reframe that kind of tiredness of being resilient. And I thought it was really nice. And so resilience is very different than being numb. Resilience means you're experiencing, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going. And all of those take up a lot of time and energy and action. So it's not that we're not being resilient or that we're tired of being resilient. It just takes a lot of all of that mental stamina, all of that emotional stability, and all of those things. So it's one of those that it's not something you can just idly sit by and do. So it is that celebration of you're being resilient because you're exerting that energy. And what an amazing ability to be able to do that in those situations. And then I liked this other pivot with resilient people immediately look at the problem and say, what's the solution and what is this trying to teach me? So maybe that initial moment of just kind of overwhelming or just tiredness is really just me starting to kind of process what the next step is and being able to kind of put all of those thoughts and feelings together to arise to all those things. And so I found these actually a little bit more motivating than I thought. So we're going to maybe on an upswing on the resilience feeling, but I couldn't help but just acknowledge that this is a very, very complicated theme with all the thought complicated emotions other than just the simple act of I didn't give up. So love seeing all of your stuff in the chat, but that's again kind of where my head's at when it comes to resilience this week. And as always, we're going to now start with our resilience mind map, which I know there was maybe a little bit of confusion because it seems very early in October for us to already be on week 2, but there are 5 weeks in October, so we're going to knock out the first 4 weeks with the mind map theme, and then we're going to have a special bonus one at the end that kind of ties into that kind of end of the holidays and maybe leans a little into the upcoming holidays as well, embracing the full Burr month persona. And then we're going to move into the rosebud thorns and then those weekly setup pages. So if you haven't joined us with a mind map before, these are not printed in your journal, and these are something that we do just to dive a little bit deeper into each month's theme. And so, like I said, we're on week 2. We will include the prompt for week 1. And I think Bailey will have it ready to go in the chat as well if you want kind of the full one. But it is just an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper. And initially, I was a little hesitant on what I thought about these mind maps, but I have found them to be one really, really good opportunities for me to just sit and reflect. And then I get so much inspiration from all the chats that we have over these. And that is, I think, what's so amazing is to get so many different perspectives and so many different ideas on these themes, how it can kind of translate into your life, but also get some inspiration from other people as well. So we're going to move into that. So find that blank page or that section of the mind maps. And so last week, we focused on what helps us feel most grounded, steady, and strong within ourselves. I write a distraction list. That was what was some advice given to me by my therapist as like things to help you. And so I always carried those on my phone. And so now we're going to take a moment to kind of celebrate how we have expanded or evolved through change, because resilience is really kind of adjusting to change, whether, welcomed or unwelcomed. So, the question being, how have I expanded or evolved through change? Another kind of reflection option is to what shifts in your life, expected or not, have actually deepened your character, sharpened your clarity, or expanded your compassion? And definitely look back at these situations without regret, but with reverence. I had to Google what reverence meant because the context clues didn't help me. And that is more, I consider it as like respect or almost an admiration to it. So you're still holding it in a high regard, not to nitpick the negativity of it, but how did it kind of alter the way you kind of approach these things now? And you can either tell a story of the past changes from that lens of growth. What strength did you develop? What did you learn about your capacity to adapt, love, lead, or trust? And so this slide, the first 3 sentences there are the prompts taken directly from the other page. So when I switch back and forth, you'll still have those there. And then I added again that gentle reminder to look back not with regret, but with reverence or appreciation. And then I always like the idea of this can be a combination of events and experiences, and you can also build on traits you already have that could maybe help in times of change if you do not feel like you've had that like earth moving situation, and it's been kind of a lot of the smaller ones where you've just kind of had to do some small tweaks and adjustments as you go. For me, I really focused on what's helped me expand is I was in a profession where I really couldn't make too many decisions driven by emotion. And so emotions are things that we know we can't control. So I really was able to adapt and adjust to being able to, you know, give those emotions a time to run their course, but not in certain audience or certain settings. And so that was always one of those when it was like being able to kind of come back and kind of step aside, spend some time to there, but it got a deeper appreciation for all of the different facets that emotions brought me. But it also gave me an opportunity to kind of just check them so I didn't regret something that was said or regret a response that I made because those emotions were overpowering. And I have felt that it just makes me a little bit more present when I'm coming up with those decisions because I know to kind of put my emotions a little bit to the aside and then find the right person, the right audience, the right situations to kind of explore those a little bit. And that's one of those I always joke, I knew exactly how far it took or how quickly I could walk from my boss's office to my room in the event that I was not able to control all of said emotions. And so I knew how long I had to hold my breath before I just kind of broke down in tears. And I feel like that was an amazing skill that I hate to admit that I know, but I absolutely benefited from it so many times. And so I think that really just built to the resilience. So now I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to give you some time to work on this, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And yeah, this was a tough question. And I think it's tough because, as I said, I feel like with resilience, there's been an almost like a melancholy overtone to it. Even though, again, I have gotten up every single time I have been knocked down in kind of those situations. But seeing each and every one of you, one, I appreciate how honest. And just lovely you all have been to just each other. So much love and support in the chat, which is wonderful. But then also taking the time kind of to spend that last kind of time in whatever you found it necessary to find. Because what's great about these mind map questions is you can write them down and come back to them. Um, because sometimes it can be a little overwhelming in the moment. And I know I picked some kind of sad music. But all of those thoughts and feelings or emotions that can be there and they can be processed at even a more appropriate time. But I appreciate everything that has been shared. And I know these mind maps have been a little bit tough. I certainly appreciate the feedback on that. But I think it's one of those that I have just found so much satisfaction being able to kind of sit and explore, even though I've initially kind of thrown my sucker in the dirt and wasn't happy with it. But I've at least learned and I've been able to do it. And so I appreciate just being able to share all of that with each and every one of you. And likewise, you sharing it with us. It's so special. And again, it just makes me feel like I'm not alone in a lot of those situations. And at the end of the day, you all have done some amazing, amazing things that I am proud that you've shared. And I am proud that you are still persisting and being resilient, whether you do not feel it or not. I am a cheerleader that you can always think of. But thank you for sharing, and please continue to share in the chat even as we go. This is your time to do so. And if I need to go back to different slides, please let us know because that is how we're going to go because we are kind of still set on a specific time. But now we are going to continue the attitude of reflection. And please join me on page 30 in your October journal. It's wild that we're already in page 30. But that is the week that we're getting ready to do. So we're going to use our rosebud thorn to reflect on the previous week. And as I've seen, some people have had some lovely weeks and some people have had some rough weeks. So this is your opportunity to kind of lay them out on the page and to just kind of see what you can maybe take from this or what do you want to leave, maybe what you want to forget. And the kind of ability to be able to look at all these three things together, the good, the bad, and everything in between, I do find really valuable because it does allow us that moment of kind of taking some of that control a little bit because we love to be here to celebrate all of those roses, which are a highlight, a win, something that's made you happy, that made you smile, that has just been a bright spot. To get excited for those buds, which are the emerging opportunities, something that is coming up, something that is on the horizon that you haven't quite figured out, but maybe you can turn it into a rose or a thorn. Or maybe you are just at the steps of Maleficent's castle in that thorn bush. And so it's been just challenge after challenge after challenge, and just being able to kind of acknowledge those as well, I think is still very powerful. Especially when you get to kind of find the rose within it. So my rose this week, honestly, I've been really enjoying my playlist. I don't know if it's because I've been a little nostalgic, a little excited for vacation, but I have been having some little dance parties up here during my workday where I've gotten up and just kind of karaoke, sang aloud, dance like Noah's walking. And I've really enjoyed just being able to like kind of do stuff, but still that joy that I find with music and being able to set up the playlists. I find that really fun. Emerging opportunity. I know someone had already asked, but I am actually headed to Switzerland and Italy for 2 weeks with friends that I traveled with Ireland for. And so I'm excited. I definitely need a vacation. So I'm really excited, looking forward to that. And then the thorn, it's going to sound silly, but it's been super, super windy here because we are in the midst of a storm, Amy. And I have older windows that don't quite sit nicely in the frame. So it's just a lot of window shaking. I don't get the greatest of rest because it sounds like someone is going to break down my window and come in. So the wind always makes it a little bit challenging. And so I just don't sleep as well, don't function as well. And it can just be a little tricky. So again, if you want to share in the chat, we would love to celebrate with you, send you some extra love and support that we are thinking of you. And I also love that this becomes like a little weekly check-in with all of your regular socialers so that I can live vicariously through each and every one of you. But yes, please join us on page 30. I'm going to play a song and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Just loved seeing everyone's kind of the way their week has been. I see that we had kind of some definitely tough thorns coming up on some milestones, and that can always be, again, a roller coaster of emotions. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. It is a lovely check-in. I know with each and every one of you, the investment is certainly there with our socialers, and I feel like there's also just that relief of being able to kind of put out into the world kind of your thoughts when it comes to the roses, the buds, and the thorns that you had last week, and just kind of a little bit of a safe zone. Because even I, sometimes it's like I just need these to be out there. I don't need any necessarily feedback or any of those things on it. I just feel a little bit better that they have been kind of taken out of the picture, at least to some extent. And I've been able to kind of acknowledge it because I did come across something on Instagram the other day where it was like, and I feel like it felt very attacked, a little called out, where it was like, did you really have a bad day, or did you just let 5 minutes of your day cloud your bad day? And you didn't let it go. And I was like, oh, that's me. Which again, I feel like it's just that opportunity to kind of sit and reflect. And I always think it's a great litmus test to kind of figure out, did you have maybe a harder time finding a rose? Did you maybe have a harder time finding a thorn? And sometimes I feel like you can take one of those and kind of move that energy or that thought or that movement into the next week, because now this is our opportunity to take control of the week that we have to come, because this is week 41. Can you believe it? So we're going to set up week 41 in our journals. So this is going to be on page 32 and page 33 in your journal. And so this is again our opportunity to just kind of take a little bit of that hope and that intentional optimism of this is how I want my week to look. And maybe we can kind of set up some things to either help us if those things change or provide a little bit more oomph and support as we do it. But I do love the opportunity to look at this with almost like a fresh set of eyes as we go into this week. And so this is one of those, I feel like this is your opportunity to ask yourself, what do you need this week? Because sometimes what you need is exactly as written on those pages. Sometimes what you need are those unique individual sections. Sometimes you need all of those sections to work together to help you with whatever end goal you have this week. And sometimes what you need is something completely different. You need to maybe not use the weekly to-dos. Maybe you need to turn your weekly to-dos more into that gamification, or maybe you need to turn it into those delegation lists that you genuinely need to have it, or maybe you just need a break from some of these sections. So there is no right or wrong way to approach your journal, and that's why we love about the feedback here. So just because someone is doing it differently here, just because I talk through it a little bit differently, again, there is no right or wrong way to do this. So we are going to start at the top of page 32 with this week I want to feel. And I love that I put an end goal on it because that's just the personality that I have. But I like to have that end goal, or that what is going to bring me back to equilibrium as I'm experiencing the roses, the buds, and the thorns of each week, so that I can come back to center. Where is my kind of lighthouse, the guiding light, whatever kind of cheesy metaphor you want? That is what I personally need. And so for that, I always ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? And then I add all of those building blocks together to support that. So what you need this week, or how you want to feel this week, or how this week you want to feel in that capacity. Maybe it is you don't really want to feel this week. Maybe it's this week I want to embrace, or maybe it is 1% better, 5% happier. Maybe it's less of something, more of something. Maybe it's multiple words. Maybe it is a specific definition of a word. Maybe it's a quote, it's an affirmation, a doodle. Again, pictures are worth 1,000 words, and stickers are just teeny tiny pictures. So maybe it's that type of motivation that you need. Or even maybe just because we start at this section, I feel like you don't always have to start with this one. Maybe this is more of the summary at the end of the week, or at the end of the day, or at the end of the setup, you come back and done, so that you can do that. So I'm going to give you a quick song to come up with the intentional optimism of how you want to feel this time next week. I feel like it's a great, clever want song. So we'll see you. that we've established how we want it. I'm now going to combine the next two sections again, still on page 32, with those weekly major three goals and the weekly to-dos. So maybe these are the major three goals, the minor three goals. Maybe these are just the three categories of things you want to accomplish. Maybe these are the emotional and mental reminders that you need to give yourself so that you can feel the way you want to feel this time next week. And there are a couple different ways you can approach this, but these are not all inclusive. Categories tends to be a pretty common one where maybe it's leaning into the alliterations with the creative, capable, and carefree goals, or the mind, body, soul goals, mind, body, health goals, home, work, self goals, kind of all of those different combinations. Maybe it's more of fall goals, or sometimes it is just like the three big things you need to do this week. And then maybe it's actually, instead of like weekly goals, it's three goals that you want to accomplish each day. So you have something that you would do in the early morning, the midday, and the evening every single day. Maybe you have one big goal that you're trying to frame. And so then you have your to-dos that kind of fit through that, just because that is the main focus. That is where all of your attention is going to be. Here comes some of those bingo boards that you'll start to see. We've also seen people repurpose this section with their mind map questions. Maybe this is where those affirmations go. Maybe it's leaning into some of those motivational affirmations or quotes, or something to help you feel inspired so that you can feel the way you want to feel this next week. And again, just because we have three things, you can have two things. So the one in the middle is the home and the work. The one at the top, they've just switched the weekly to-dos and the goals because lines help with the to-dos a little bit better. Another alliteration with that: let go, leap into, and learn. And then you do have those weekly to-dos. Y'all know I am an oceanography person, so sharks are my favorite. So I love when I find cute little cheeky sharks. That's going to help me with my motivation for the week. Because really this week it's going to be a lot of asking for help, for me, especially as I try to kind of get everything wrapped up before vacation. So I am leaning into that Eisenhower matrix with that do, decide, delegate, and delay. Because it is just me, myself, and I. The delegation becomes really key, and that I never actually delete anything. I usually just delay it. So it's kind of what can be done now, what can be done when I get back. And so I'm really, again, leaning into that kind of prioritization tool with the Eisenhower matrix. But maybe it's more of the Pomodoro technique. Maybe you need to eat the frog or start pulling those things off to the dread list, especially if you have carried over some kind of activities or tasks from the previous week. Maybe it's a bingo that ties to those categories that you've already established. Maybe it is just recategorizing your to-dos, which adds just a slightly different perspective to it. Maybe it's breaking them down into the things that you need to do or the things you want to do. Maybe it's that gentle reminder of don't do this and do this instead. I love it when we help ourselves in that kind of Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb style, because I find that really beneficial, and honestly, future me absolutely appreciates it. But again, maybe you need a little bit of a break from the to-dos, or your to-dos live on a different page. Maybe it's more of the meal plan that you're kind of repurposing there. Maybe it's the gentle reminders to be, some of those weekly wins or those weekly moments of resilience, or even the work, the personal versus the needs and the wants, all of those different combinations. So, going to go back to the beginning of this section, give you some music to listen to. And as always, I am always looking for personal hints to kind of help tackle some of those to-dos that I feel like keep getting carried over from week to week. I haven't had that in a while, but I just have a sneaking suspicion I'm kind of falling back into that. And I don't know if it's just burr months and the fact that it's darker now, but I have just kind of found that. And so I'm hoping to kind of anticipate it a little bit. But as always, we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I appreciate not only our people sharing kind of how they approach this page, but even just some of the hesitations or just the thoughts and feelings around this page. Because I have definitely not done anything that I initially planned on these pages and they have been blank. And I reached the point where I definitely ripped some of them out, which made me feel a little bit better because it is a lot of blank space and a lot of white space. And I'm one of those that, believe it or not, I have a tough time with silence. So I've had to kind of learn to lean into silence a little bit as like the rhetorical questions. So I almost have to remind myself to lean into the white space and the blank space because maybe it's not what I need. Maybe that's not my opinion at the moment. And I have found that to be really helpful and a little bit more calming when it comes to that, just to kind of lean into it. But I know that takes a whole nother mindset of being easier said than done. But I have found that I've made that correlation a little bit. And again, it still doesn't help me. I feel like it doesn't necessarily always help, but sometimes it makes me feel a little bit better. Um, so we're going to stick with page 32 and we're going to move to those habits and activity tracker, which I do love about these. And I feel like these are the biggest, like closest things I have to my like lens of reality because I tie this with my monthly habit tracker. So the monthly habit tracker, those are things that I want to do every single day. I pull those same 3 to 4 things over each week and I add that lens of reality of how much time or energy or effort can I realistically set aside to it based on, what's my workload? What's the weather like? What are the other things that I have planned? And I have just found that I have been able to manage my own expectations much better because I was beating myself all over the place with this particular section. And so for me, as I said, because I'm going on a vacation, I'm not really using this section because the 3 things that I want to accomplish every single day is to move, read, and journal. Luckily, I'm going to be moving because this is going to be one of those kind of tourist heavy vacations. So the movement, that's going to come just inherently with it. So that always makes me a little bit satisfied. I'm not on anybody else. I'm on everybody else's schedule. So it is not just me. So the reading and the journaling, we become a little bit more challenging. But I always kind of find those moments to kind of combine those two to just recharge my social battery because I love being a social person. I am an extrovert. Oh, but sometimes you just need to sit in a chair by yourself and have no one talk to you, no one look at you, just to kind of sit, collect everything, breathe, get in your head, and just have a moment. And I do find that really helpful, especially when you do all of this. And so maybe it is setting a goal, setting those requirements. Maybe this is where those mental and emotional reminders are kind of are. But as I said, for me this week, this is going to be blank. Next week, it's going to be blank. I may put a sticker over it, but I think it's also, again, I think by putting the sticker over it is not necessarily gonna, I'm not gonna feel either way because I have leaned into the blank space a little bit more. And it's more of like, well, that's not what I need this week. I don't need habits and activities. I need to be present. I need to enjoy what I'm doing. I need to take all of the pictures and not edit them myself and kind of post them all out and do all of those fun things that I know I'm going to get that satisfaction from. And so that is what I need this week. So maybe coming back and asking yourself, what do you need can be helpful. Because we also know that your work, the weekdays and the weekends can look a little bit differently. Just because there are 5 lines does not mean you need to use all 5. Like I said, I am a solid 3 person. I am a creature of habit. So that is absolutely what I do. But I do like to throw in some fun things every once in a while. And I've also kind of embraced this 5 days to schedule every month, but I've also kind of embraced with like a theme of the week. So this past week, it's been very much the reset day, making sure everything is all set up. This past week, getting preparation for that. And so this week for me is going to be the fun week, and probably next week as well. So then we'll have to come back to either the self-care, the reset, or the learning kind of a framework so that I can come back from vacation and not feel so behind. But I am also, again, love the iconography. And so I repurpose my expense tracker to just kind of celebrate these bucket lists. I mean, I'm kind of a bingo board person, but not really. That's not really kind of my style or how my brain works. So I love making these lists. And what I love about so many of these things, I get them off of Instagram. So I've completely kind of changed my For You page recommendations just by curating these. So now every time I go into my search for Instagram, I get stuff like this and it makes me so happy. So I highly recommend doing it. But what I love about these is I incorporate these onto my adventure bucket list on that repurpose expense tracker because absolutely you can follow me on Instagram. But I love incorporating all of these things because I feel like so many things are kind of stuff that we already do. So why not give them a special moment and enjoy it? So like the spooky movie nights. I know all of you have your spooky movie playlists all ready to go. So why not make it a special event? Give it that kind of moment that it really deserves because these are things we were already planning on doing. But I just love adding it and giving it a title and giving it a name and calling it important. And again, things to look forward this autumn, and then little ways to romanticize your life. Um, Bridget, I don't actually use the icons. I just use those because they make me happy, but I write down the different things. So cozying up with a spooky book, I already have my two kind of rom-com. I'm reading a thriller. So I get inspiration from the pretty pictures, but I actually write down just what I do in that way in the different fun colors. I'll put one I have there. But like you said, I love these. These make me so happy. So I'm going to give you some time to work on your habits and activities, and I would love to hear what you're working on, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now we're going to turn over to page 33, which I lovingly refer to as the B-side. This is not a section that this is not a page that I use very often. I tend to leave this pretty much blank. But I do repurpose the meal plan for a packing list. So listing kind of all the different outfits I need to bring, all of those things. And it's definitely come in handy for when I have to travel for work and usually have to just do some carry-ons. So I found that really, really helpful. But you can absolutely use the meal plan exactly as written to plan your meals. So you can do that in a planning form, or you can do it in real time if you're doing more of kind of a health tracker, a fitness tracker. or even some sort of symptom tracker in that capacity. Maybe this is where you kind of lean in a little bit more to the creativity and the journal aspect with those daily affirmations that you can find in the app. The doodles, just to give your mind a break, the haikus, some of those daily priorities, maybe leaning into your roses for the day, or the how you showed resilience for that day. Kind of those little amazing celebrations I find really helpful and really powerful. The mind body health plan is again another one of those things that you can either schedule or you can kind of do in real time. So again, Nathania's in the chat. Shout her out with that. I feel and I need. This is one of the most beneficial, I feel like, mental check-ins that you can do. And you can even just do it in your journal, or you can do it on a little sticky note where it is that truly powerful check-in of like, how are you feeling? And based on how you feel, what do you need? Do you need to make an adjustment? Do you just need to kind of get up, walk away, breathe, get some fresh air, listen to a song, kind of have one of those mental break moments? Maybe it's leaning into the write down three things that you like about yourself, the seven types of rest. Love seeing that. I will come back to these, but again, I love just the affirmations. I love the puns. And if you're not, again, at Instagram, follow at Silk and Sonder. They put in some really wonderful reminders with kind of the reducing stress, as well as the kind of what can you be grateful, some of those gentle reminders that I feel like I have to give myself. Then we have the shopping list, which can go hand in hand with that meal plan, or even maybe you want to get a kickstart on your holiday planning because we are less than 100 days till Christmas. Shh. You didn't hear it from me. But I also use this for kind of the accessories that I maybe need to pack. Maybe this is where your seasonal bingo boards are going to be. Wordle, again, those shopping lists, those affirmations, the social check-in, the mental break reminders, all of those things. I know Halloween needs its moment. Like I said, you didn't hear it from me. And so there are different ways to repurpose this. So I'm going to give you some time. We got one more song, and we will see you at the close. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And we have that very last section on page 33, which is the I am loving. And that is your opportunity just to basically shout from the rooftops what is bringing you joy, what is making you happy, what is bringing that smile to your face. So I love putting that in section. If you want to share in the chat, please do what you're currently loving. But you also have page 39, which this is my favorite page. So I think it is leaning into that white space because what I love about this, I love stories, I love storytelling. So there are 3 lines, which gives you the perfect beginning, middle, and end of the month. So I do a check-in at the beginning of the month, halfway through the month, and then at the end. So then I get to tell this lovely story of all of the things that I was currently doing for that month. So I absolutely encourage you to lean into this page because I think there's so much joy that can be brought with this that sometimes other blank pages in the journal always keep me up a little bit more, but this is one that I can totally control and it makes me so happy. And with that being said, can you believe it? We are finished, but we would love to continue the conversation in this Look and Sonder app. If you want to share your pages there, we love to get inspiration from there. There's also a little bit of the post-social flurry that you see in there if you need additional inspiration, because we find them just wonderful. Bailey is also including some of those things in the chat. We have announced our October exclusive, which will be exploring childhood wounds, which will have an added fee, but it's going to be so lovely and so wonderful, and it's going to be done so well, but definitely bring your tissues to that. But I think it's such a good topic to kind of look at and explore with this particular theme of resilience. You saw Jenny made an appearance with some of that personal life coaching. Also, if you are in the Tennessee area, Bailey is hosting a live and in-person social on the 1st of November. So if you're in there or can commute there, she'll drop that information there. You can always catch up on YouTube with some of our other socials. So we like to kind of check in there. This is a copy of my playlist. I will include the link to my Spotify account where this is. I have playlists for each and every social that I do. So if you just need a little bit of extra inspiration or some of those fun instrumentals, that is where they will be. But I am glad that you're here. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I hope you have an amazing week. We are so glad that you joined us, and I hope to see you at a future event, and we will see you really soon. Bye.
Not a soul up ahead and nothing behind. There's a desert in my blood and a storm in your eyes. Am I the king of nothing at all? Then you're the queen of nothing at all. Well, I remember the fight and I forget the pain. I got my hand in your pocket and my key in your chain. Am I the king of nothing at all? Then you're the queen of nothing at all. Through the wilderness, you and I will walk into the emptiness. My heart is a mess. Is it the only defense against the wilderness? Will cross my heart and hope to die, taking this one step at a time. Got your back if you got mine. One foot in front of the other. One foot in front of the other. One foot in front of the other.